If you thought the competition finally caught up with Apple, well, think again, because Apple's M4 MacBooks are coming out soon, with many of them coming this year. And in this video, I'm going to tell you about not only the performance, but some long-awaited upgrades to these machines, multiples, that are going to be a big improvement. And honestly, I think that the M4 chip is the biggest upgrade since Apple launched the original M1, and I will explain exactly why. Now, this year, this was the first time that Apple launched an M series chip first in an iPad instead of a MacBook. They are doing a big reversal, and I think it is smart. Now, I'll mention which MacBooks are gonna come out in what order, but the M4 iPad gave us a lot of information about the M4 chip, some info that Apple didn't really want us to know about. Now, of course, this thing is powerful, especially in single core performance, where it smokes pretty much everything. If we take a look at the new Snapdragon X Elite, which is a really powerful chip, it beats that out without an issue. Even the M3 beat that out, but also Intel's upcoming chips, AMD's upcoming chips. The single core is going to be incredible. Now, we actually did a full video going super in depth into performance, so you guys could check that out if you guys will want to, but I'll give you guys a few of the numbers here. We did a bunch of math, and if you care about web browsing performance, web applications, well, this thing is going to scream while saving battery life. Now, in terms of multi-core performance, Apple did something very interesting this time around. And if we look at how it stacks up, it does not beat out all of the competition that's coming out. But you gotta remember, the M4 chip is their baseline chip, and it's already pretty much getting close to the X Elites that are using a lot more power. So the performance per watt is also really good. Now, this chip is going to be in the 14-inch MacBook Pro along with the MacBook Airs. And of course, in that 14-inch, you'll be able to get the M4 Pro as well. But I wanna focus on this M4 chip and some of the major changes that are coming to it. Now, in terms of core counts, this was very weird for two ways, because in the iPad, you can get a 3 performance core CPU, which is really crazy. They have never done that before. It's always been a 4-core ever since the M1, and the reason they did that is because it is so powerful. It's a 2nd generation 3nm, which means it has more performance, less power usage, and when we look at the iPads, the base model uses a 3-core. You have to get 16 gigs to get the 4-core model for the performance cores at least, but the performance difference was not that huge, and it looks like Apple is actually pushing more power to the 3-core to enable it to get better performance instead of just keeping it exactly where it is at. Now, this 3-core is going to be coming to the MacBook Air. They have done some binning before on the graphics, but I don't think that is a big deal. Now, as far as graphics performance, well, it is actually quite good in our tests. There are some better performance, but it is really high. And of course, for Apple, compute works very well. In our X Elite videos, we show that off, where if you look at some benchmarks, well, it might not seem like a huge deal with X Elite, but in terms of some programs that can really harness that, well, the difference starts being huge. And with that, these are the first Apple chips that are using ARMv9. They have larger instruction sets, and you can get some really good performance boosts there. Now, the other very interesting thing about the M4 is that it has 6 efficiency cores. So it's now a 10-core overall chip, and that means that a lot of tasks that previously had to use those performance cores, now they don't have to, because we have more efficiency cores. They are more powerful as well, and that means you're saving a lot of battery. When we compare it to the X Elite that only has 12 performance cores, well, if you're just watching videos, yes, an X Elite can do slightly better. But in our tests, the MacBook, even with the M3 chip, actually beat out the X Elite by quite a bit in terms of mixed real-world battery life. And the M4 chip is going to be better better. And one interesting thing about it is that compared to the previous M1, 2, and 3, with those chips, each generation, they started kicking up the power that's required to get more performance, but the M4 is the first one that has more performance and it uses less battery. So the battery life is going to be insane on these chips. Now, I want to talk about some new features that are going to come to these Macs, but first I want to mention that of course we have improved memory bandwidth, but what is also important is that it seems that Apple's finally going to get rid of that 8GB base RAM that we have had for a long time that has now plagued the M3 and M2 chips because it's just not enough. The iPad that has 8 gigs was found to actually have 12, but it is limited to 8 gig usable. So that is showing us that most likely these M4 MacBooks are gonna have 12 gigs as base. Now, it's not gonna be 16 gigs as far as we could see. So we have 12, not exactly what we wanted, but that's still a nice improvement. Apple is finally getting rid of that. Now, as far as storage, I would love it to be 512. Who knows, maybe the X Elite laptops will pressure them enough to have 512 as a starting point, but I would not bet on that. Now, I mentioned that the MacBook Air will get a binned M4 and that is not a big deal, but if we look at the current MacBook Air lineup, the 15-inch comes unbinned. It's only a couple $100 more expensive, so I believe the same thing is gonna happen there. But one upgrade that we should also see is the ability to finally have dual external displays along with the built-in display, because we have double the media engines or the video engines for it. So now there's gonna be more outputs and we have 4 Thunderbolt controllers now instead of 2. So we are matching the Pro chips now. So we're no longer gonna be limited in that way. And that is gonna be sweet. Now with that, this is also likely gonna fix an issue that we had with the 14-inch M3 MacBook Pro. Whereas on the right-hand side, we lost a USB Type-C port, a Thunderbolt port, compared to the M3 Pro versions because the chip just simply did not support it. So that is likely going to come back, and that is great to connect multiple devices. And because it'll support multiple displays now, without having to use the clamshell mode, you will need to use that extra port just for the extra flexibility. So this is making these M4 MacBooks a lot more powerful in terms of the flexibility, the performance, battery life, and I also want to talk about the thermals, because on the M4 iPad Pro, Apple said it has 20% better thermal performance, and now they're using graphite sheets to help cooling for the first time. Now, we have added our own thermal pads to MacBook Airs, and that greatly improved the performance because it spread out the heat instead of having it concentrated on that chip. And hopefully Apple will be doing the same thing, but themselves designed from the factory to help with these fanless machines. Now, of course, on the 14-inch, it does have a fan already, and because it's gonna use less power, it actually is gonna perform better and run cooler. But on the MacBook Airs, that would be nice. Now, some people have asked, are these machines gonna get thinner and lighter? Because technically they can. You have a more efficient chip that's faster, using less power, you have more efficiency cores, and so battery life is gonna be quite a bit better, class leading, beating everything else out. But they could give it a smaller battery, could make it thinner, could make it lighter. Now, I don't think that makes a whole ton of sense if they keep everything else the same. But if they wanted to bring back the design of the 12-inch Retina MacBook that had the keyboard all the way to the side, very sleek, very thin, very light, they can now actually do it in, say, a 13-inch, make it super thin, super light, but still maintain the performance because of this M4 chip, and just because of the performance that it has while using less power and with better cooling. So when will these come out? Well, we will see the M4 chip in a MacBook Air this fall. Right now we are midsummer. It's not that far away, but you will have to have a 14-inch machine because the MacBook Airs will be coming out in the springtime. So that goes back to Apple flipping their strategy. Instead of launching a chip in a base model MacBook like the MacBook Air, they're launching it backwards. So they're gonna have the people that care about performance the most getting more expensive machines, and then the cheapest machine, which a lot of entry-level people buy, they don't care or don't really focus on performance, that will come out later. And I think that is a fine strategy because all of these Macs are already so fast and they're going to get even better. So you guys let me know your thoughts on the upcoming M4 MacBooks. Are you happy that Apple is finally getting rid of a lot of these limitations and it's just getting a lot better, way more performance than we could ask, beating out Max chips, the M1 Max, in a thin and light fanless laptop? Give me your thoughts down below. Go ahead and click that circle above. Check out one of those videos right over there, the Spin Max, and I'll see you in the next one.